If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Good.
Very good.
Any questions? Well, I'll go
John
home.
Russell.
I have one. You say you love this like new Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Isn't it kind of like a pain in the ass to have going from just worrying about radio and to waking up every day and have to worry about tweeting and
It's unbelievable.
updating your Facebook
It's unbelievable.
statuses and all that? Like, what if you forget one day?
Well, first off, I employ other people to do that now. I've tried to carry the world on my shoulders, but I'm not a big guy. You know what I mean? Like, so, and honestly, on a personal level, I gently invited all of my employees to go work for my competitor. And as a public figure, as Nasty Nestor, I took a boatload of heat. All of the guys I developed in the first part of the century all work for my competitor. But that's a Steve Bisciotti line. Steve Bisciotti would tell you, hire young people like you. I'll bring all of you into my company. I'll keep the 5 best. 5 best performers get to stay. The rest of you, go work for the fan. You suck. I don't want you anyway. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of survival of the fittest in that way. And work now is all encompassing. Brian Billick tells a story about the chicken and the pig. You know the chicken and the pig?
I haven't heard that one.
The chicken and the pig story basically says, you're making breakfast, there's chicken and pig involved. Chicken's kind of there, lays the egg and goes his own way. The pig's all in. The pig's part of the meal. I'm looking for pigs. I'm looking for people who are all in. Because it's an all-in game, right? I mean, sports news doesn't happen like between 9 and 5 on weekdays and not afternoon on Friday, because who the hell wants to work on a Friday, especially in the spring and the summer? I mean, our world's upside down. I mean, I'm sitting on my couch last year in my underwear watching the ball game. My wife's there. We're having a nice night. We're eating a meal. Next thing you know, Mike Flanagan killed himself in 5 seconds. Friend of mine. It was about this time of night, too. I'm sitting on the couch. It's 7:21, and a guy killed himself who's a major sports figure in town. I didn't even know, okay, tweet it out. Well, first off, source it. That's the journalism side, right? I mean, I haven't talked about journalism here, but source it, send it, back it up, get the traffic. And if you look at my traffic on that day, it looks like that. And that's because I have the ability to make it rain. 10,000 people on Twitter right away, 50,000 on Facebook right away, 7,000 on text right away, and I'm just getting started. And those people are all getting it saying, man, NST reported it must be true. Forward, 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 forward. And now they have the ability to click on that and come to me. 4 years ago, they couldn't. I couldn't get that traffic. I broke stories all the time, but it wasn't news till the Sun had it. So you read it in the paper the next day to make sure it was there. Now it's like, if I'm in the bathroom at that point, or I'm in the movie theater and I got the phone on silent, I come out at 10 o'clock at night, got my ass kicked. Embarrassingly, got my ass kicked. But for me, I've got like 14 employees now, and they're all goobers. I mean, they're all like into it all day. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they live it, they eat it, because if they don't, the guy down the street will. And I know my competitor won't. You know why? They have all my shitbird employees who are asleep, who don't want to do it.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said they all have my shitbird employees, my ex-employees,
Yeah.
who didn't want to do it, who didn't want to be awake. And if you don't want to be awake, sorry, man, I don't want to lose. I don't like losing at all. I'm crazy competitive. So from that perspective, it's 24/7. And I'm not ESPN with 1,400 employees in a building all along the watch. I got 14 guys, but my guys are in, man. If it involves the Ravens, the Orioles, the Terps, if you're not into that, you can't work for me. You just can't, because we can't win. You might as well go work for the competitor or just do something else, because this thing's real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the world I'm, as a journalist, that's the journalist side of me. But that's the marketing side too, because that's really what brings it together. If my content sucks, no one's coming. If your basketball team sucks, no one comes. If your hockey team's good, everybody comes. Basketball team here, building was full this year, right? Jimmy, good team, playoffs, it'll be even better next year. They got 6 more months to sell it. But what they're selling, better sell Sketty Eddie some food. Because if it doesn't, and they don't find a way to do that, I'm going to go get that money.
You talk about a lot, like what you're doing outside of radio, but what are you actually doing? Like,
In radio?
In radio, like on your program.
Radio hasn't changed much in that way. I would say the biggest issues in radio now are the things that this mobile device changes. So premise in radio for years and years, give the time, right? You always give the time. That's a radio premise, like Radio 101. Give the weather, give the traffic, give the 2020 score and news update. We don't need to do that for. Every 20 minutes, if I want to know what the score is in any game in the universe that started at 7:05, I'll pull that out right now. What score do you want? What game in progress do you want? And all that, by the way, lives on my website too. You can hit my website and get scores in live real time right now. Mobile app, whatever you want to do. And so a lot of those premises change. Now the radio needs to be compelling unto its own right. And one of the problems with talk radio, being a talk radio guy in the 90s, I could go on the radio in the afternoon and say, 481-1570, give me a call. And at my zenith of popularity, I don't have to worry about phone calls. It's like making it rain. It was like getting water. It was like, 481-1570, who wants to talk about the Caps now? Boom, the lights would light up. Now, people want to bitch about the Caps, they'll do it on Facebook. I'm not going to sit on hold waiting 14 minutes for me to get through a stop set and a guest and 2 other people in line in front of them. So talk radio has changed now, where the only people that get through, quite frankly, are zealot morons. I mean, if you listen to any Rush Limbaugh type stuff, any caller that gets through is somebody that doesn't have much of a life. I mean, really. Because if they want to bitch about something, all of you have a platform now. You can bitch to all your friends on Facebook or to Twitter. In the universe, you can go on to a blog site. You can comment at the bottom of something on the New York Times if you want to. Being heard is no longer, that's a great point. It's a fundamental premise that's changed dramatically. So a lot of our programming now is more, I'd like to say, expert-based. Expert meaning like somebody that you can go to their website. And now that there's 1 million people writing blogs from basements and websites and web analysts, like draft, right? Just take the NFL draft. How many of you are NFL fans? 15 years ago, there were 3 places in the world that considered themselves draft experts. Mel Kiper, who pulled himself off of ESPN, and Mel's a dear friend of mine. He's a Baltimore guy. Bring Mel here to lecture these kids. Mel figured out early on that he was special. He was one of the few people that did it, right? So Mel did a book and said, if you want to know what I think, you're going to give me $80. And I'm going to send you the early forecast in August, and the mid-season forecast in October, and the end of the season forecast, and of course the Senior Bowl updates, and then the Combine updates. And then 3 weeks before the draft, you're going to get Mel's Bible. You're going to get what Mel thinks, his top 1,000 guys, right? And the book comes, and it was $80 a year. And he had something like 70,000 subscribers because he was on ESPN. He owned his own business. So do the math on that. 70,000 subscribers times $80 a subscriber. It's righteous bucks, right? It's a lot of money. And that was his business model. Now when the web comes, everybody, there was a guy named Joel Bushbaum who died, and another thing called OURLADS, OURLADS. They were the only ones who were media people who looked at the draft beyond like Sporting News putting out a magazine or USA Today putting out the magazine you buy for $8. I'm talking about like 1998, where you'd sit there, watch the draft when Peyton Manning got drafted, and you'd have a little book, right? Now on the web, how many people are writing their mock drafts on the web? Probably somebody in here has a mock draft, right? So everybody's an expert now. And what we try to do now is get experts. Get people that are on the web in a sports organization. So instead of sitting around waiting for phone calls, we have to call it expert talk, but it's more guest-driven than it is caller-driven. So that industry's changed a lot too. I mean, ESPN Radio, I don't think they ever take a phone call. I don't think any of those. Mike and Mike in the morning, they never take a phone call. Because they don't want some idiot calling in from wherever, from Queens, bitching about the Jets or whatever. They just don't think it's compelling radio. Neither do we. So
if you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.